Sahih Muslim 389, Sahih Bukhari 608. Today we uncover one of the most powerful protections in Islam, the Adhan, the call to prayer, and how it makes Shaytan flee in terror. This teaching is preserved in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Have you ever noticed how everything stops when the Adhan is called? A busy market falls silent. A quiet home fills with sound. Even in a noisy city, the Adhan cuts through the chaos with its words of light. But what happens in the unseen world at that very moment? The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, revealed the answer. He said, "When the call to prayer is made, Shaytan flees, passing wind so that he will not hear the Adhan. When the call is completed, he returns. When the Iqamah is made, he flees again. Then when the prayer begins, he returns once more to whisper, distracting the person until he no longer knows how many rakas he has prayed." Sahih Bukhari 608, Muslim 389. This hadith paints a vivid picture. Shaytan cannot bear the sound of the Adhan. Its message is too powerful, its truth too overwhelming. So he runs humiliated, fleeing as far as he can until the sound fades. But when the call ends, he creeps back. He does not give up easily. The Prophet described how Shaytan waits for the Iqamah, the second call that begins the actual prayer. Again, he flees. But as soon as the prayer begins, he sneaks in close, whispering thoughts to distract the worshipper, pulling the mind away from Allah. The companions understood that the Adhan was not only for humans. It was a declaration that shook the unseen world. For believers, it was a call to life and success. For Shaytan, it was unbearable humiliation. This is why the Prophet encouraged the Adhan to be called not only in mosques, but also in homes, even when one prays alone. Every time it is recited, Shaytan flees. Every time it is raised, the angels draw near. The battlefield of worship begins not in the movements of prayer, but in the sound of the call. And the believer who understands this sees the Adhan not as background sound, but as a shield that scatters the devils. Why does Shaytan flee when he hears the Adhan? What is it in those words that he cannot stand? The Adhan begins with the declaration that Allah is the greatest. Not wealth, not power, not pride, only Allah. For Shaytan, who was destroyed by arrogance, these words burn. They remind him of the command he refused when he was told to bow before Adam. They declare the greatness he denied. Then comes the testimony that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. These are the very words that separate belief from disbelief, light from darkness. Shaytan hates this declaration because it destroys his mission of leading people away from truth. Then comes the command to prayer, the call to success. Shaytan thrives on laziness, on heedlessness, on wasted time. The call to prayer is the call to discipline, to worship, to the very act that humiliates him most. The believer bowing and prostrating before Allah. Every phrase of the Adhan exposes Shaytan's failure. Every word reminds him that his army cannot overcome the light of faith. That is why he flees, running so far that he cannot hear it. But the Prophet's hadith shows his persistence. He cannot bear the call, yet he always returns when it ends, waiting for a chance to distract. This reveals a lesson. Shaytan is relentless, but weak. He flees from the sound of truth. He cannot open doors closed with Allah's name. He cannot stand in homes filled with Quran, and he cannot bear the sound of the Adhan. For the companions, these words transformed daily life. The Adhan was not just a ritual. It was a weapon. They'd heard it and knew that the devils had scattered. They answered it and knew that angels surrounded them. The moment the muezzin's voice rose, the battlefield tilted in their favor. The meaning of the Adhan is victory. It is a sound that weakens Shaytan, strengthens faith, and draws people together in worship. It is no wonder the Prophet taught that it should be raised wherever Muslims are, in villages, in cities, in deserts, And even when traveling, its echo pushes darkness away and fills the land with light. The Prophet's explanation that Shaytan flees from the Adhan carries timeless lessons for every believer. First, it shows us the reality of the unseen. Shaytan exists, he whispers, distracts, and tempts, but he is weak. A few words of truth drive him away. This is why Allah commanded the Adhan to be the announcement of prayer, not only to gather people, but to scatter the devils. Second, it reminds us of the power of sound. Words matter. The Quran is recited aloud, the Adhan is proclaimed, supplications are spoken. These are not empty sounds. They shape the unseen. They summon angels, drive away devils, and protect the believer. Third, it teaches us to value the Adhan. Too often we hear it as background noise, a routine part of life. But in truth, it is a shield. When we hear it, we should pause, repeat its words, and remember that Shaytan is fleeing at that very moment. Fourth, it reassures us in times of fear. Homes feel heavy, hearts feel unsettled. Raise the Adhan. Its sound clears the atmosphere, purifies the space, and drives Shaytan out. This is why the Prophet advised the Adhan even when alone or in the desert. It is protection as much as it is a call. Finally, it challenges us to answer. The Adhan declares that Allah is the greatest and that prayer is success. If Shaytan flees from it, should not the believer run toward it? The real defeat of Shaytan is not only in his fleeing, but in the believer standing, bowing, and prostrating in response to the call. So the next time you hear the Adhan, do not let it pass unnoticed. Hear it as the sound that scatters the devils. Hear it as the announcement of light. Hear it as the victory of faith over whispers. For the Prophet's words remain true, Shaytan flees when he hears the Adhan. And every time it is raised, the believer is reminded that no matter how strong the whispers, the truth of Allah's greatness silences them all.